Hello and welcome. We are so excited to welcome you to Living Cities Earth experience. Please enjoy the next few minutes, and we hope that this video and the ideas from our speakers will change your life to the better. Listen carefully. What particularly talks to you? What might have a chance to change your life and lives of people around you? Also, life of your place and our planet. We believe that you, the leaders of positive change, are those who define the future. So let's work together. And thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Anton. If I may maybe ask Eva to share my slides, because I'm not very sure of my internet connection. I don't know if it's possible to share my slides. Otherwise, I will try.
Yeah, sure. Let's try this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So my name is Aida Robana. I am the head of the UN Habitat in Tunisia, covering also Libya and Algeria. Sometimes, I will explain why sometimes. So I would like to thank you again, Mr. Anton Panek, for this invitation and for this beautiful panel and this timely webinar, I must say, on happy cities and happy planet. We will begin with the theory, the definition of a sustainable city, because you have presented some indicators, of course, but I think that it's good to begin with some maybe explanation. Next, Eva, please. The SDG came after the Millennium Development Goals. And in 2014, the United Nations, with all the member states, have launched the World We Want survey that took place in 2014 worldwide, asking people, really people from the planet, all the people, to say what they want for the next decade. It was a global impact platform that was launched to unlock the collective strengths of people, ideas, networks, media, technology to address the most critical challenges and accelerate change. And so the definition of sustainable city has been a little bit defined by the people that answered. And when I say the people, it was for everybody, disabled people from the south, from the north, from institutions, rather public or private. And this platform, you can, of course, visit it. It's the World We Want platform. The definition of a sustainable city was to improve the quality of life and well-being of every city dweller, to stimulate the local economy to develop its attractiveness, and to achieve carbon neutrality by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. This was a little bit the definition that was developed after this first survey took place in 2014. So we have the 17, of course, Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide. The one that is important for the discussion of today is the discussion about the SDG 11. The SDG 11 is the SDG about cities that are sustainable, resilient, secure, sure, and has these beautiful 6 indicators, because something that also the theory has shown us is that we really need definition, we really need indicators, we really need baselines also to know if a city is sustainable or not. So the people that has worked on the SDGs and the SDG 11 has developed this set of indicators about what you have said, Anton, before with your presentation, is that we need safe and affordable housing and basic service, the habitat, the shelter, the housing. We need safe and sustainable transportation systems. We need inclusive urbanization that is, as I said when I was discussing the first panel, that is participatory, that integrate the planning, integrate in the planning process everybody. We need also to be aware that some countries and all countries have cultural and natural heritage that is very important. History is very important also for cities. we need to develop the resilience to disaster. We have seen very early with the COVID, but we also will wait for new, unfortunately, other disasters, rather natural or health disasters. So we really need to be resilient about that. We really need to adapt, and we really need also to be prepared. We need also to reduce the environmental impact of cities, and this is what is also about sustainability, to have green and public space, so to also plant trees, and to plant vegetables, and to develop biodiversity, and also to see the rural-urban linkage, because we have seen also that cities are all built when they are formal, but there are also informal settlements that are built in the rural areas, and also I can also maybe develop better, and also to see how we can develop together with the population good comprehensive disaster risk management, and also to have for all of this financial and technical support to develop sustainable and resilient buildings. And this is also all about also financial and technical capacities to be built in several cities. Next slide. The role of UN Habitat, very quickly, it is a UN agency, of course, one of the many ones that are existing, but the UN Habitat mandate is a very technical one, is to promote social and environmentally sustainable towns and cities, and to promote the urbanization as a positive transformative force for people and communities, to reduce inequality, discrimination, and poverty, and achieve adequate shelter for all in order to have no one left behind. And this is also something like a motto for all the UN agencies, including, of course, UN Habitat, to work with the most vulnerable, because also we know now that our resources are really scarce, and we need really to do a lot with very few. And this is also something that we have integrated in our planning support to communities and to urban and rural continuum in the world, and of course here in Tunisia for ourselves. Next slide, please. You have also, I think, mentioned the main urban challenge, all of you, of course. We know that for many discussions that are now going on. The COP27 was done in Cairo, in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and the next one will be in Dubai. And all of these urban challenges have been discussed, the energy supply, the unplanned urban sprawl, the informality that we know a lot in our countries, the social and economic inequalities I was mentioning, the air pollution, the water supply and sanitation, the waste management, the natural hazards, and the climate change. These are, as you see, the photographies from some of the cities in the world. Unfortunately, these are now not an exception, are things that we are seeing more and more. Next slide, please. We know also that the climate change has some risks to urban areas that also we already know is the rising temperatures. For example, in Tunisia today is 25 degrees Celsius, whereas normally in the same period, we are in the spring, we have between 15 and maximum 20 degrees Celsius. So it's very hot today. So we have the heat stress, the water security and pollution. More and more we are countries that has a lot of problems of water and water scarcity, and water also security and food security also. We have a sea level rise more and more also, with storm also coming in this region, the Mediterranean, for example. It's really very new for this region. As I said, extreme weather events, heavy rainfall, strong winds that we didn't have before, flood security and ocean acidification, and water and sea level, of course, and sea acidification that is also more often observed. Next slide, please. So now this was the theory, a little bit of the challenges and the definition, and what is the practice that we as UN Habitat Office in the world, and also, of course, in this region, in Tunisia and Libya and Algeria, we are doing. Next one, please. So we would like to first of all underline that this SDG 11, of course, like all the other SDGs, are linked, and of course this the battle of the cities cannot be done only with cities or with the local authorities or with the national government. It should be done by everybody. I mean, and every SDG is integrated and is part to the SDG 11. So when you talk about cities, you will talk about education, about health, about infrastructure, about environment, about climate change. So something very important on the definition and also on the practice of the sustainability is that we really need to understand that the SDGs are really interlinked and are very integrated one to another. And it is very important when you plan for a city or plan for a sustainable city, you really need also to pass by all the 167 indicators, 169, I think, indicators in order to understand what are the most relevant for the sustainability of your city. Next. So what we really begin to do, or we have done also in some places also as pilots, that we need data, we need to assess the situation of city in order to see if it is sustainable or not. So one of the first things that we do is an assessment that is called a voluntary local review. That is a participatory process, and that is also a tool that allows cities to assess the achievement of the agenda and of course, the element of the sustainabilities, which are the economy, the social part, and the environmental part. And it is very essential to have this data, because something that UN Habitat, but also the UN, have seen this last decade is that data at the local level doesn't exist. In some of our countries, there is no data at the level, I mean, accurate data, of course, that can be used to assess and to monitor progress about sustainability, to see if really there is, for example, actions that has been done about climate change or energy or to build infrastructure, if there are any indicators that have been put in place to do the follow-up of the SDGs. So one of the key elements that UN Habitat is following, and of course that it's not doing it alone, but with all the local authorities, with the private and public sector, with the national authorities, but also with the population, is to develop a voluntary local review. A voluntary local review is a report. You maybe also have heard about the national national voluntary reviews of the SDGs that can so at the local level review and see how we can achieve and how we can monitor the development of a city, the sustainability of a city, and some very good tools, rather formal or informal, using also now all the open platforms that are available to also use the inhabitants of this city to also say, for example, is my street secure? Do I have good infrastructure? Is the transportation here or not? So everything is collected at the local review side and analyzed, of course. And with that, we can use formal and informal information to construct and to develop the voluntary local review. For now, in Tunisia, we are doing it for one pilot city called An-Nour. An-Nour means in Arabic light. And we are doing it in a very remote place in a governorate called Kasserine, and it is a very dense city, but it's also a beautiful one with a very beautiful cultural heritage, very Roman one that I encourage you also to visit. And we are also developing in this particular city a tool of certification on SDGs that you can also visit on our website as UN Habitat, called the SDG City Initiative, that has been launched by the Secretary General for more than 10,000 cities in the world for 1 billion population, in order to accelerate the SDGs at the local level and, of course, the sustainability. Next. So this is the planning process of the VLR, the voluntary local review, that you can find, of course, as I was just discussing it. I mean, how to plan it with people and with the local authorities, and also coordinating with the national level, gathering inputs and data rather formal from the Statistical, of course, Institute in order to measure progress, write the reports together with the population, send it and present it as for example, for Tunisia, the Tunisian government or the local authorities at the local level. It will be the municipality or the mayor of the municipality or the team of the municipality that will present on behalf of its population what has been done and what is not done so far. So it is very important because it will show the gaps, and it will also bring with specific platforms that have been developed also by the UN Habitat to bring also around the table where the challenges are existing and where also, maybe, for example, the private sector could have an impact or bring financing in order to accelerate some elements of this city, a particular city. Next. Another concrete example is you know that also that one of the problem or challenge is the waste management. And particularly the plastic. The Mediterranean Sea is, for example, one of the sea that is really impacted a lot with the plastic. And some of the cities in the coastal areas of Tunisia are very impacted by the plastic. And you know, of course, worldwide that it is a big challenge. So UN Habitat has developed a Waste-Wise City tool, which is a step-by-step guide to assess a city's municipal solid waste management, and will accelerate the management performance also of the composition of the waste, but also on how we can do and use the five very popular R's: refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle the waste. We are also experiencing and trying to develop on two big cities in Tunisia, the capital and another place called Sousse, and we are trying to see how we can reuse this very big amount of waste. In Tunisia, more than 60% of the waste is organic, so we are trying to see how we can reuse it and reduce it, of course, and when possible, of course, to recycle it. Next. I have heard that you have talked about smart cities. Also, it's something also very new in this part of the world, because of course the use of information and communication technologies have developed, but still we need to develop some tools in order to first of all develop the capacities of the population, develop the capacities of the local authorities to understand how to optimize city functions, how to optimize the use of these technologies to better improve the sustainability of the cities, and also, of course, to always look at the human rights perspective, because when we say ICT, sometimes we will have people that even don't know what it is about. They don't have a smart telephone, so it's really very important for us also to be aware of the human rights part of the sustainability, because smart cities are really about people-centered initiatives and experiences that we are targeting to do. So UN Habitat is working on digital rights, on the challenge-driven innovation that are launched every time to time by our innovation units that are in Bonn. And also there is a very good global compendium of best practices in the world that you can visit, and that are really very useful for us in the field to use and to see how we can also contextualize them to our context here in Tunisia or elsewhere in Africa. Next. This is also like a model that we are also trying to use. You know also that the transparent governance is very important. for sustainability, collaborative and transparent governance. We need, as we said, to have technological capacities in place to co-create smart cities, to have communities, citizens that are aware of what they are doing and how they can use these smart technologies for good, and also that smart cities are for all. We need sustainable mobility. We are working on that, for example, on Mobilité Douce. For example, in Tunisia, we are working with a campus, a university campus that has 16 institutions on it, and 60,000 students, and we are trying to develop with them, together with them, really step by step, people-centered campus approach to sustainable development in the campus. So for us, it's very important to have everybody on board, to understand also what are the roles of everybody in order to maybe shape better the smart cities and the sustainabilities. Next. We have another tool that we are on now also experiencing and using. It's the Her City Toolbox. It is the inclusion of girls' voices through the urban planning process. This is also a very key element for the sustainability, because this Her City Toolbox that you can also find on the net and that can be contextualized is to include women. And you know that in some part of the world it's very difficult. It helps to support urban development from a girl's perspective. It guides urban actors to implement projects through a step-by-step methodology. It provides an open and digital accessible platform for all, and facilitate, of course, an ongoing dialogue between professionals, but also with the inhabitant. We are using it, and we will use it, of course, in a small city in front of the old Medina of Tunis. And for now, it is used in 700 registered users from 250 cities in 90 countries, in Johannesburg, for example, Nairobi, Beirut, Flemingsberg in Sweden, Koge in Denmark, Lima in Peru, for example, to cite some of them. And in Tunisia, we are going to use it with women potter that are placed in informal place, call it Haye Hlel. Haye means cities, informal city in Tunisia, or hood. And we are trying to develop this Her City in order really to collect the ideas of these women about their urban public space around them. Next. With the young girls and women, we of course need also to integrate the ideas of the youth, and also we know that more than 50% of all urban doulas will be under 35 by 2030 and by 2050 as well. So the youth are really the ones that are critical and key to have them on the process, and to have them from the beginning. So in this area, meaning the Arab region, we have more than 50% of the population that are under 35, under 30, I must say. So it's very important also to bring them on board from the beginning in order to develop the planning of their cities and the sustainability together. And of course, it's really always very insightful to have them. Next. I think it's the end, voila. So saying that we have also very good practices from Stockholm, which is of course a model of a green and sustainable city. We have cities like Zurich also that are one of, in 2016, Zurich was one of the world's most sustainable cities ranking. So of course we use the examples of these beautiful cities to take some of the elements that we can bring in our context and also take the good part and understand better how we can contextualize and use that. Thank you so much. Over to you.
Yes, thank you very much, Aida. Very interesting presentation, very deep and thorough. Really a lot of aspects. We loved and shared a couple of your slides already with other colleagues and participants of our club, etc. And thank you for this really interconnected view, that again, holistic view, as you named that, because yeah, I really believe that's the issue, that's the problem. And yeah, so probably the question, probably the summary of your report. Can you just tell us probably, or maybe you can even think of that a little while Dr. Okafor would be presenting. What would be the top 3 outcomes, recommendations for us, for people, for I don't know, probably even organizations, how to really where to start, what should we focus on? Because all those frameworks are pretty hard, and but at the same time, there are a lot of them and they're quite known, and probably the problem is not that people don't know about them, it's just that they don't have some secret sauce, the key, the enabler, the catalysator. Okay, so probably you can answer right straight away, or you can think about that, just up to you at your discretion. So what would be your choice?
Oh, I can just maybe throw something at him. I didn't think about it. I will say that maybe before Dr. maybe Okafor goes for his presentation, saying that where to start is really to build trust, because this is something that we have seen through decades about development. And as you said, I mean, the instruments, the tools are here, and there are so many, very interesting for some of them and very important also. But before using your city toolbox or whatever instruments or tool, we really need to work with the population and say what's in it for me, and explain to them what's in it for them, and what we can do and what we cannot do for sustainability, and what will be their role and their responsibility as well. So this is something that if we need to start somewhere, we really need to go for a community. I don't know what is the community. For us, it's there are hoods and cities, but for others, there are other groups. We talked about IDPs, migrants. We have worked with migrants, for example, in a very chic suburb of Tunis, but we discovered that there are lots of vulnerable migrants there. So we said that we need to develop trust. So we have discussed with them, and we said that art, maybe using art, culture, will be the best way to bring people together in order to develop projects that can be meaningful, of course, for them, and that can also bring this trust. So from my point of view, working on development, I have learned that we really need to begin with trust. I mean, to bring people on what we are doing is to bring them. I mean, it's not a matter of finance, or it's not a matter of whatever planning, or that we have all these beautiful tools, but we really need to gain the trust of people, and to say that we are not, we will try to build something with them, even if it's only one block, we will do it, and at the end they will see that we have done it together. And then the appropriation, of course, sustainability means also long term. So we the second element, I would say, I mean, one of the, I don't have 3, but for me, these 2 are key. How the population, or how the inhabitants or the community, the hood, will take what we have done together and will bring it after to another step, or another block, or another development. Voila, over to you.
Sure, thank you very much. Yes, I can't agree more, really. I would say the same thing. That's what we are all here about. So Dr. Okafor, probably continuing this note about internally displaced people, migrants, refugees. I know that's been a priority, you've named that. And so Dr. Okafor Christian, yes, so your experience, your understanding, or probably some examples from Nigeria. So the floor is yours, please.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much, Anton. First and foremost, let me thank my colleague, Aida, who have done justice to the session. We're from the same constituency. I can only but compliment what she has said. She's done quite a lot in the field and have presented that here. I totally agree. So many things that she has mentioned. But let me also thank you, the Living Cities, as members of your organization, for extending invitation to me. And of course, I'm happy to be part of the Global Earth Day, meeting quite very important presenters and experts on this call. Just to say that I will try as much as possible to provide some field concrete examples and and of course, linking it with the Agenda 21, Agenda 11, which has its clear explanations about making cities resilient, inclusive, safe, and sustainable. But then having practiced more in conflicts and post-conflicts, I will bring in the examples of the people, the most vulnerable population that I have worked with, the IDPs, the refugees and all that, and then share as much as possible how issues around them have actually influenced or affected the whole narrative about sustainability. So just building on where Aida stopped, a colleague, I must say that like I mentioned, we in this part of the world, Africa, and most specific the Sahel belt of Africa. We're talking about Burkina Faso, Niger, Nigeria, where I'm involved directly in the Sahel Resilience Project that is being implemented and funded by the government of Sweden. We have discovered quite a lot of similarities among those countries in historical connections, infrastructure, the gap in infrastructure, human rights abuses, land governance systems, quite a lot of things. There are similarities, and of course, one of the clear revelation is that the issue of migration, there are conscious, but there are also unconscious migration trends, because people have got some historic connections. For instance, in Nigeria, there are already pre-colonial linkage between those people. So even if you put the boundaries, you can still not separate them from trying to find a way of linking with each other. So, we will try. We're still in the process of coming up with a whole spatial analysis and strategy for the region. But just to tell you that, for instance, in Nigeria, we've got huge number of IDPs, refugees, and returnees. So many of them living with communities, so many of them living in confined settlements. And of course, UN Habitat has always been seen as a development organization that does urban planning and development and provision of infrastructure and so on and so forth. So we were not at the center of conflict management. But the emerging situation, the current situation, have actually brought UN Habitat in the middle of it. And I can tell you, in terms of even technical implementation, the UN is talking about humanitarian development peace nexus today. And so no one is done in isolation. It's actually working as one. And in UN Habitat have found itself dealing with issues that helps other UN to actually manage even a humanitarian intervention. And I will cite one example. For instance, we have what we call the Sahel Resilience Project that is being implemented in 7 countries, Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Chad, Niger, Senegal, and Mauritania. At the moment, for Nigeria, we've got some 12 states within the northern part of Nigeria, the Kano, Adamawa, and all that. So, and the Sahel Resilience Project, one component of it is divided into 2. One of the output 4 is divided into 2, where we have to develop a spatial development strategy. And then we also have the city resilience action plan. And in this case, what we do is we go to the states, we train people, we do advocacy, we build the capacity of the local actors, we empower them to collect qualitative data, and then we use Kobo tool, we analyze those data, but we allow them to understand what the data will be for, and they actually drive the process themselves. They bring in data in line with specific matrix of functions, whether it's economic infrastructure, social infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and at whatever level they are. And then we then analyze this whole data and bring in some literature, and then also, of course, some quantitative data, and make reference to our existing tools, and then we come up with spatial development strategy. It is important to do a spatial development strategy so that we do mapping, GIS mapping of what exists on the ground. And one of the advantage this brings is that it helps you to actually see visibly even the SDG interventions, where they are, how they are spread in the whole territory that you are analyzing, for instance, in Nigeria, in Burkina Faso, and all that. Then that helps the governments, the communities, the donors, the international partners, and every key stakeholders actually understand the gaps on the ground. Spatially, you see it on the paper and you see the data. And at the end of the day, it also informs prioritization decisions. It informs, investment decisions, and we see clearly the gaps. And then people are also trained to be able to actually, bring in their local resources. It doesn't have to be international commitments. It could be local resources. When they understand what they have within their localities, they are able to deploy that to complement what every other person is doing. And so that's for the spatial development strategy, and then which is at a bigger scale. But then the city resilience now zooms into specific municipalities where we also build capacity of the people. We train them, we bring them together, we form them as local committees. They do that local data collection in government, at the very municipal level, government institutions, and then they bring data, whether how the infrastructure are funded, how the implementation capacities, whether they are human or institutional capacity gaps and availability, and then they bring also information from the local communities as to what they want and how the government have actually served them and what sort of resources they have, so that we build their capacity along the line, and we understand also make them understand also the opportunities within their locality. So we do also spatial plan, and then but that's at a very local level now, not spatial development spatial development framework that is at the very bigger scale that covers a whole state or a whole country. So then we marry the two to be able to come up with a spatial development strategy to support sustainable development. Again, one thing that is very obvious here is that we've got a huge number of IDPs that are today living in some of these communities where we are doing those studies or activities. And what is obvious there is that you have so many of them living in camps, you have so many living in isolated camps. And then what is at the center of affecting sustainability is land governance. And I can tell you that IDPs' rights, and my colleague Aida mentioned the issue of rights and all that, and inclusivity. To what extent are IDPs able to acquire land, for residents and then for livelihoods? So for some of them who want to do agriculture, to what extent do they have right to acquire land? Because they are seen as IDPs or refugees, and then you see state government saying, well, you don't belong to this state, you don't belong to this country, you don't belong to this. So those narratives and denial becomes a major challenge, and that's one major effect around sustainability today. And again, for us who are actors, we also ensure that when we have land for settling IDPs, we ensure that the whole processes of land governance is done. That's what UN Habitat does, basically, supporting other UN agencies and other partners to ensure that those lands are properly acquired, prepared, so you don't throw the whole community into chaos with IDPs or refugees. You ensure that the land are well prepared, they are all mapped, everybody understands their boundaries, and they are provided very good size of land where they could, as the family expands incrementally, they are also able to build their houses incrementally. So you build their expertise around housing prototype, incremental housing prototype, so that they can continue as their livelihood improves. They continue to develop even their houses, and their family size increases, they can continue to expand. And it's also important to ensure that you ensure that women within the locality or within the IDPs, you build their capacity to understand how they support post-conflict reconstruction processes. Some of them can do activities that are very important in supporting reconstruction processes or reintegration processes, I would say. But land is very key. And, the experience we have here in Nigeria is that the state governments are very adamant. They don't want to provide land because they say, well, IDPs have no right to live here. And then they give them very small amount of land. That becomes a major impediment because you are actually making them not to grow. So you bring IDPs, you settle them in a community, and you don't give them land. You just keep them in a camp. Then you're encouraging dependency attitude and then entitlement attitude, and that's also not a very good strategy to develop. So we ensure that we build their capacity. We advocate for government to provide land, even though we have this dichotomy of government versus community ownership of land. We understand that, but we ensure that yes, communities provide land, but the government should do the management, map the lands, digitize them, and then provide the IDPs the rights documents to own the land. If they choose not to go back to their place of origin, that's fine. They can remain here. Everybody has a right to move and live anywhere. So we've got this complication. So what we're doing as UN Habitat largely is to help other UN agencies that have come together to talk about durable solution. You may be aware of the new discussions around durable solution. The UN Secretary General have had the Office for Special Advisor on Durable Solution. We have got UNHCR and IOM at the front line with UN OCHA. But again, UN Habitat has been brought as a major technical expert in terms of implementing it. And I am at the front line of implementing that in Nigeria, in northern Nigeria here. And we are ensuring that whatever, before you even resettle IDPs or refugees, you should be able to do, to ensure that the issue of land, issue of urban planning, whether they are living in primary cities or emerging secondary cities, we should be able to provide infrastructure. We should be able to ensure that we have urban plans and make sure that the environment doesn't also induce another displacement. We must have some infrastructure that will make their settlement quite resilient, yeah? And then we must also ensure that they have good economic opportunities. You don't just put them in a place and allow them to stay. They should be able to have opportunities so that they will contribute to the economy of the country. And what is important here to note is that you can have IDPs in one location. The most difficult thing is to cluster them in one location. If you don't utilize their potentials, they become dangerous. But if you utilize their potentials, they add a lot of value to the economy. So these are the things that UN Habitat is bringing. And of course, then you have the issue of urban disaster. So many IDPs are vulnerable to that. The moment we have disaster, they don't have the capacity to manage that. And they don't have even the resources, to recover from the shock. So what we are encouraging is to have a spatial plan that incorporates what we call early warning, early response infrastructure, where you provide early warning infrastructure and capacity at a very local level so that IDPs are not further displaced. I mean, while they are living within their communities, they are safe. They are carried along. They are part of the whole operation. So then when there are disasters, they will be able to understand what to do, how to respond, how to recover, and so on and so forth. But then how to even report the potential danger before it happens. So we are building capacities around, but we are encouraging that there should be a spatial plan that puts a lot of information at the domain, at the people at the very local level. So UN Habitat is doing quite a lot in supporting other UN agencies to achieve durable solution and ensure that IDPs, which was not our primary mandate, are supported. The refugees were also supporting. We are in partnership with UNHCR and IOM now, trying to bring in our expertise to support the humanitarian efforts that they've made within our development mandates. And like I said earlier, we've got quite a lot of IDPs. As long as we don't deal with issues of managing them and managing them comprehensively, our efforts in achieving the SDG will continue to be thwarted. Even within the Agenda 11 of inclusive cities and human settlements and resilient cities and sustainable development, settlements, it will be difficult because you have people that are displaced. If you don't plan to settle them, then they are bound to be displaced by either the host community themselves or natural disaster. So when they are displaced, they add pressure because they have to move. Now, when they move to other locations, they add pressure to the governance systems or the new communities, and they become even a threat to us. So it has to, just to agree with Aida that it really has to be done collectively. Everybody have to come on board. It has to be whether governments, whether us as development partners, the donors, and everybody. We have to pull resources together. And we have to do it not in piecemeal. It has to be simultaneous, and everybody has to be included. It doesn't have to be. There's no one that should be left behind. Whether you are a woman, everybody has their role to play. And I will leave that conversation at that. As we move on, if there are other clarifications, I will jump in to provide. These are concrete examples that we have here, and we're trying to come up with very spatial analysis, spatial these interventions to be able to address that and make it even much more sustainable. Thank you, and over from me.
Yes, thank you very much, Dr. Okafor Christian. And just the same exercise as I usually love to do is to reiterate what you've said in a kind of a summary, so that to be sure that we've understood you correctly, and then also to make some very short outcome and advice to our other club members or viewers, or those who would watch this recording afterwards. So I've distinguished three things, kind of, again, enablers for really managing this task of IDPs, of making basically displaced people settled. So, and it's kind of very interesting that I guess all of them could be solved also by applying some kind of digital technologies. That is my background, and probably the background of some other people of this call. So it probably would be even able to help, and we can discuss this, how we can address those pillars after this conference. So the first one is the quantitative data, to be able to analyze it and inform all those investment and financial decisions. The second one is decomposing the SDGs and city level to the municipalities, zoom into specific municipalities, so that we can, again, transplant the goals into the local community level and understand what it means for the local community. And the third one you've named is the land governance is the keys in the central of it, right? So that, you know, urban planning, secondary cities, and also the mapping and understanding where people can really be entitled to use this land to either live there or make the agriculture. And thank you for overlapping with or reflecting what Aida has said about engaging people, so that no one is left behind. So I guess this is the common ground, that regardless of the goal, of the aspect of the SDG, it's crucial and vital everywhere. So first of all, please confirm that I have understood you correctly, and secondly, please expand if you think just probably a couple of more things, like the key that I've missed, so that we really have to put in this kind of a summary of your presentation.
All right, thank you, Anton. Just to say again, that it's important that we deploy, you know, the bottom-top approach, looking at people at a very local level, leveraging on their potentials, taking advantage of their presence in the community to understand the local resources that are available, and then using them actually to be able to, you know, to feed into the global agenda of sustainability. The local people have got a lot of potential, whether they are women, they cut across different tribes and religion and all that, but taking note of their religious diversity and cultural diversity, but then bringing them together under one platform. So many of them in cooperatives and leveraging on their potential, particularly even the youth, to feed into the global agenda. I think that's very important. And for us also, I always say that working together as one, leveraging on the data. There are many people who are working together today. So many have got quantitative and qualitative data. Everybody is running with their data. Even for us, what I've seen in Nigeria here is that there are many government institutions that are that have deployed space-based technology. They've acquired data, but everybody is so individualistic and keeping their data to themselves. And then the people at the very local level don't even know what this data are for, even though it is meant for them. You know, you don't go back to tell the people how to use the data. You've not built their capacity. You are keeping the data at the comfort of your office at the national level. It doesn't add value. You know, the people have to understand, build their capacity, how to translate this data, and the state actors to translate this data into substantial development and to feed into the global agenda. But again, like I said, I most narrow my conversations around the IDPs, the refugees, and all that, because I always say, while we want to achieve sustainable cities and settlements, the role of IDPs and the refugees is very important. If we have them and we utilize their potential and their population positively, we can have a lot, we can achieve the global agenda of sustainable development. If we allow the population to be all utilized and not harnessed, then it becomes a danger. And then that affects the issue of inclusivity, safety, and so on and so forth. So, and it also creates a lot of social and security pressure on us, because then, and it borders also on our national security. So while we're talking about the whole idea of, sustainable development, SDGs, and then looking at the agenda number 11, it is important to look at that component, because that is the emerging trajectory today, where we have a lot of displacement induced by natural factors and human factors, and it's affecting every effort that are being made, whether collectively or individually. So it is important to address that that sector holistically. And I say that we have the responsibility, we have all the resources that we can put together to be able to achieve that, and then it fits into the global agenda. Thank you, and over from you.
Yes, thank you very much again for this. Emphasizing the focus, that what is really important. And by the way, so I guess almost, or probably even more than half of the participants of this sessions are members of the SDG Plus Club. So thank you for joining. And probably you guys have some questions or comments or ideas. Please feel free to share or ask our speakers the questions. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Sure, Yeva, go ahead.
Yeah, hello everybody. And on behalf of myself, I would like to thank Aida and Dr. Okafor again for joining. And I had pleasure of communicating with them prior to the meeting. So thank you very much again for finding time. And this content is amazing. I have a question for Aida regarding those tools that cities are supposed to be using. Is there any process of onboarding, and how do you explain to the management or to other stakeholders how to use those tools, and how do you sell them on that idea? How do you explain the benefits? And have you ever encountered any resilience, or like people not willing to use those tools and to utilize those approaches?
Thank you, Eva. Yes, the onboarding process usually is done through our projects. If we are going to do it with some donor funding, we will bring around the table the citizen of the inhabitants of a city and local authorities, of course, and all the stakeholders that can be relevant for the use of this tool. So we usually begin with a capacity building around this tool and how the population can use it. And then we usually also work with sometimes small groups of girls. For example, one of our partners, Cities Alliance, has worked with some groups of women using this Her City toolbox to develop inclusive public spaces in the capital, Tunis. And we do the onboarding usually step by step because we just show to how and where to use it, and also we share it with the local authorities in order also for them to be used to this kind of tool, and to see also the relevance, of course, for them to develop it in other to use it in other settings. So the onboarding usually goes through us or goes also through our project, and sometimes when it is a good tool, it will be used by other NGOs, for example, associations that will use it also. We have seen that in many parts of the world, UN Habitat has piloted this kind of tool, and then some of our partners will continue to use it and to develop capacities of people using it in order to really set the delivered outputs around the urban space. And then if we have seen some resilience or some maybe challenges using it, no, because usually we use also we use the a little bit of the gaming with the new generation of Gen Z and now the Gen Alpha, and we try to bring them around gamification in order also to make them appropriate, take these tools and use them. But it depends on the context, of course. If we are in a very remote place, we cannot use gamification. We will go through very traditional ways to present the tool, the utility, and we begin to test it, to experiment it, to experience some test with the population. Over.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question?
Of course.
Oh, sorry, I've interrupted you. My name is Diana Gamazova. I'm one of the members of SDG Plus Club. It's really awesome to see all of you here, and it was really interesting listening to you. But as I'm a first year environmental science student, and as you know, like I guess from my age, I'm 18, so I'm a part of Gen Z. And from perspective of conscientious, sustainable cities, how do you think, what is the best advice you can give to my generation to make cities better? And maybe how can someone interested in being conscientious about my living can distribute this idea to others? Thank you.
Maybe Dr. I can go.
Yes, Aida.
Yes, thank you. No, I think that it's very interesting question. Yes, because usually, at least in the part of our country, Gen Z sometimes doesn't want to go to this kind of discussions or project. But what we do is that we go to universities, we go to schools, also to do things that webinars that we are doing now to explain better what is sustainability and how they can be also part of the solution, and how they can bring also their knowledge also of the city, and how they can bring their solutions. So we participate, as I said, to innovation challenges. We work also for our office. We usually also be part of some incubation of startups that are developing sustainable solutions. I am part of some juries of these incubators that are now very important in Tunisia to develop and accelerate solutions for the SDGs. This is for the, let's say, the tech people, the Gen Z, but for the others, I think that the main, let's say, channel should be schools, universities. For example, there is what we call the Fresque Climat to work on climate change with universities, and it is a very important movement now to develop solutions working with the students in several universities. It has been, working in lots of places in Tunisia, in France, in Algeria, and it is really dealt immediately by the Gen Z. They are developing the solution. They are also discussing about this solution with others from other universities in the world. So I think this is the way this is one of the way, let's say, to do it. But maybe over to Dr. Rocavort, maybe he has also some insights. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I think also one of the things we have tried to do here is, considering our background where we see a lot of individualism, people want to do something and take credit to themselves. They want to be known. It's Eva who invented this, and then the credit goes to her alone. And that's not sustainable. So we try to deploy sort of a cooperative mindset where you bring people together, you build their capacity, you harvest their potential, you empower them, and then you change their mindset from being disadvantage to being adding value to the society. And so that has helped us achieve quite a lot by having a few of them who are going to become ambassadors of peace, ambassadors of development, and so on and so forth. And then when we have, for instance, workshops, or we develop tools and we want to deploy, for instance, the spatial development tool, the Kobo tool, when we wanted to do that, we have to bring people from the academia, the NGO, the religious institution, because they're all very important, yeah? Governments at very national and sub-national levels, you know, all private sector actors, academia, and so on and so forth, so that everybody goes back to institutionalize, whether you are youth, whether you are from the youth category, you'll be able to institutionalize. If you are from the women group, you are able to, if you are from the Market Women Association, the church leaders, the Muslim Association, the farmers group, and so on and so on. So everybody has a role to play. So it becomes more of a collective effort. And the youth, most importantly, are central to it, because then it's easier to harvest their potential, deploy ICT, do some innovation. And Aida, you mentioned the issue of startups and all that. It's very important. So many of the youths today don't even understand the amount of potential they have. So, but they need just the opportunity to have that. And I think when we harvest all these varying components and harness them together, then we'll be able to achieve a lot more and have much more better development. And over from you.
Thank you so much for answering. It's so nice to see all of you being so positive about new generation, about people overall, because while studying here in university, I saw so much negativism to a whole human race, as if we are some consumers and we are only harm to the planet. So it's awesome to see that you believe in people, and thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, so empowering youth. Yes, Lev. Yeah, and by the way, so you can probably say a few words in a closing kind of part, and we can pass over and probably save a couple of minutes.
I would also love to comment
questions.
on what Diana asked,
Sure.
and what Dr. Okafor and Aida have already commented on. The Living Cities Earth, and I represent a large sort of collective. We have about 50 co-founders from 5 continents. So we were trying to define who we are, because when we think about ecological issues, that's definitely part of the whole solution, but there are many more, right? There are social issues, etc. So at some point we realized that on a certain level, we're about what I call social urbanism. Of course, we are about much more than cities. We work with eco-villages and villages and regions and sort of other larger, we call them living systems. But what we discovered is particularly important, and where our focus is really on working with the local leaders, local and global, but mostly local in terms of numbers. Why? Because we realize that we want to change the world to the better, right? To improve the quality of life, to deal with pressing issues, etc. But it's not 1 or 2 or 50 or even 1,000 leaders in some organization who are able to change life on the ground, right? We cannot go all over the place, all over our planet and do the things. So it's really creating this network of engaged citizens. We call them leaders of positive change, change makers, city makers, etc. And inspiring them. That's what Diana mentioned, that she was inspired by what Dr. Okafor and Aida have provided as their perspectives. So we see what's very important is to inspire. It's basically opening this quote-unquote spiritual or energetic connection, right? To open up the heart so people feel engaged, inspired, they want to act, they have the emotion, right? They're ready to move to the action. Then, of course, we definitely need the right perspective, the worldview, that we are the people who can change things, we are responsible, etc., etc. We could learn from each other, we can co-create. So number 1 is inspiration, number 2 is the worldview and how we identify ourselves. Are we just the consumers of this life, or are we the co-creators of this life? So the worldview and the self-identification is very important. The third one is what to do, right? What are the things which need to be done? And that's all about sort of dealing with experts and creating guidebooks, etc. So understanding what to do and how to do it. But then comes the most difficult part, and Aida was talking about it as well. So when we have all the guidebooks from very smart people all over the world, then we need to actually do it on a daily basis. And this is what SDG Plus Club is also about, right? How do we implement those ideas and know-how into our daily life? And this is where the community of leaders on a global scale really come to the task, by supporting each other, by sharing our best practices, by sharing our mistakes, right, errors and weaknesses, but then also combining our resources and our strengths. We build this global community of people who believe in our future, right, who believe in our inner resources, both individual as persons, right, but also collective. For example, until today, I didn't know neither Dr. Okafor nor Aida, nor many other participants of our sort of panel who watch this live on YouTube or in recording. But thanks to Anton and the team of SDG Plus Club and Living Cities Earth, we're creating those connections. And we believe that there is an emergent process, so we cannot plan everything in advance. We just don't have this capacity. We can plan some things, and they will change, of course, as well down the road. But we can create conditions and the processes where the right people get to meet each other, they talk to each other, they formulate some ideas about their common future, their common goals, and then they move to combine their resources and energy and strengths and capitals, etc., to change things to the degree available to them. And then they grow their networks, grow their sort of various types of collaboration to really increase the impact, the social positive impact, the ecological impact, etc. So, Anton, I would really like to thank you more than anything, and of course the whole team, because I know how much energy Eva and Ashraf and other members of the team have sort of invested in preparing this event, and of course the team of Living Cities Earth. This is so beautiful, and I'm very inspired, and want to thank every one of us for our joint sort of discussion today. And Anton, on to you. And we still have 10 minutes.
Yeah, by the way, just for the final note, so we'll definitely do the the sharing of knowledge that we've generated today. I think we can't afford ourselves to waste that. And secondly, probably we can discuss that with Dr. Okafor, Christian, and Aida. What could be the next steps, next practical steps, how we can collaborate, how we can help you? Because as Lev said, LCE is Living Cities Earth, the organization, nonprofit organization, global, that aims to help cities and city leaders to make cities more alive and more sustainable. We in the SDG Club are also about inspiring and enabling people with the information, knowledge, networks, and solutions to, again, solve the problems. So probably you can name those couple of very practical issues that are on your table right now that you tackle every day, and where you have some, obstacles or issues, where we can be of help to you and really foster the attainment of your sustainable goals in your cities and countries this year. And I guess it's the ask from both of us, from both organizations, because the ultimate goal is not only to share information, but on a very practical, down-to-earth level, make those actions, make those changes happen. So again, probably this last ask, you can at least initiate this idea generation, and then we can cover them after the
maybe I can begin. Thank you very much, Anton and Lev, for all the comments and the nice words. I would like to maybe ask you maybe to join our voluntary local review that we are doing for this very remote city that I was telling you about, Noor, the light. It will be good when the document is there, or at one point of the process, you'll be part of the discussion, and you maybe can share with us your thoughts about how do you see from your side or from your organization, how do you see maybe us improving the work we are doing already with the local authorities and the population of Noor, because it's not easy every day. Of course, we have a mission going there next week, and it will be good maybe at one point to have this discussion to present to you, of course, what we have done so far and what is still most of the challenges of this city. And it will be good to have maybe your inputs and your thoughts also to develop some kind of actions or to present good practices from other places of the world. It will be very helpful for us. At least for me, it is what I see really very concretely from what you are doing as a nonprofit organization, that where we can bring all this collective intelligence together to develop better what we want to achieve for the population of the Noor. Over to you. And thank you so much, Anton, and of course, all the team of your institution.
Yes, thank you very much. Dr. Okafor Christian, probably you have a couple of comments.
Yeah, thank you. I will just mention 4 things very quickly. And thank you so much, Aida and Anton, and of course, colleagues. Just starting from the issue of data, I must say that it's important that we all collaborate in terms of our data effort, data collection and analysis and management efforts. So then we add value to each other rather than contestations. I mean, it's easy to say, well, there is 20,000 people who migrated from point A to point B, but it's another thing for somebody to dig deeper to understand the drivers of such migration. So if you are doing, you have your limit and I have my limit, we can only come together to complement each other. So it's important for us, whether as partners, as government, as community, people and all that, we can always come together, talk about data collectively and how to even use them. Because then you see people contesting with each other. That's one thing I deal with every day in the field, where I have somebody who has data, sometimes not so comprehensive, but they are proud of it. And then if you want to add value to it, it becomes like a contestation. So I feel if I add value to your data, the better it becomes for us. And then we build capacity of the people to use such data for prioritization, planning, and investment. Then the second thing again is the issue of capacity. Quite a lot is missing, and I think that's one area that we can think about. It's easy to develop programs, but it's another thing to actually allow the programs to be bought in by the last beneficiaries and partners and maybe the local partners. You know, they will always see it. Well, you have program coming in and do it for us and leave. But it's important to also build their capacity to sustain, you know, to upscale, to continue to even initiate programs themselves to complement, because there's not enough that is enough. Whatever I do, somebody can always add value. So programmatically, we need to build people capacity to continue to add value to whatever we're doing. So programmatically, we can even start thinking about, you know, we have land issues, we have areas where women have no right to access land and property. So it's a huge problem. It's a very big disservice to humanity when you have a woman not given adequate rights to access land and property, or even to own a land, whether by virtue of transfer of ownership or whatever, acquisition. And so that brings me to the issue of land management. I have had to deal with every time from one community to another, you see varying degree of how people acquire land, how they own it. And most times the people at the receiving end are always the women, where they are told, no, you don't have rights. For instance, when I was working in South Sudan, when it was still Sudan, up to when it became South Sudan, you have the big guys, the big generals will always tell you, no, she's a woman, please. She doesn't need the land. But she needs that, because majority of them are actually the breadwinner of their families when the country was in war. Many of them lost their husbands and all that. So they have rights to own land. And they also have rights to be involved in decision-making processes. In this case, gender-based issues should be managed by women at the very local level. It doesn't have to come to the traditional ruler who is a man and so on and so forth. So we can collaboratively think about this and then look at how we can center advocacy around this and ensure that women and youths, their rights are protected within owning land and owning properties and all that. And just to wrap it up with saying, women are very important in the narrative of sustainable development. Youth are very, very important. In fact, most of the IDPs, I always mention this, majority of the IDP settlements, you find more of youth. 80% of them are youth. Underage youths, up above 18 years of age, youths, women, and so on and so. You hardly find the elderly people. If you find them, they are in very little number. So empowering the youth and women is very, very important. In whatever program we are developing, you one-stop youth centers that deals with issues of agriculture, cultural simulations, let people understand the dynamics in different cultures and what they can do to do maybe agro-tourism and use that agro-tourism as sources of livelihood and so on. So that adds holistically to the whole agenda, global agenda of sustainable development. I think these are some of the things we deal with, but if we come together to do it, the better it becomes. Then you're coming from one angle, I'm coming from one angle. We are not contesting, but we are rather complementing each other. And I think that's what we are promoting even among the UN. Wherever I find myself in meetings, I tell them, listen, I am here to add value to what you're doing. I am not here to contest. UN Habitat have got very huge mandates, but UN Habitat doesn't contest. UN Habitat add value across so many sectors, very cross-cutting sectors, and even our thematic mandates. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Okafor Christian. And I would be happy, and I guess all of us would be happy to continue this very constructive conversation, either reviewing voluntary local report or solving those issues of data management and analytics and capacity land management, women enablement, and solving those competitiveness issues. I'm sure we can add value here because we're all, again, on the same planet. So all those problems are our problems and we have to solve them together. So I guess from my perspective, that was a nice session. Thank you very much for joining and participating. Lev, again, thank you for organizing. And yeah, so just likes, applauses, see you later. And handing over to you to Lev so that you can continue with probably some other next sessions that, of course, everybody is invited to stay and listen.
Anton, thank you very much again, and all our distinguished speakers for your participation. We are moving on and we'll be talking about the Living Cities Earth. So if you have a couple of minutes, please stay on, but if you have to go, we will definitely be in touch. Aida, it was really a pleasure. Dr. Okafor, thank you so much. And Guy Eames and myself, we will be co-hosting our next session. We wish you all the best in your endeavors.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us, and very good luck for your institute. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm happy. I hope we shall meet again. And thank you so much, Aida.
Thank you, Dr. Okafor.
Anton and guys, have fun.
Okay, live long and prosper. See you later. Yes, we're having this meeting of SDG Plus Club in about 30 minutes. So we'll have to pass over there. But yes, thanks for inviting, and probably we'll join to other sessions when we have some time. So again, thank you. Good luck for the rest of the conference, and see you later.
Wow, you have made it. You just watched amazing insights from experts of Living Cities Earth ecosystem. We welcome you to the Living Cities Earth experience and hope that we are going for a long ride as we take care of ourselves, our communities, our cities, and our planet. Thank you and welcome.